last week we talked about the Memphis Pac-12 idea, and we knew that Memphis was going to come up with a decision. I had Ross Dellinger, who's been reporting, the main reporter on this from Yahoo Sports. I had him on Friday, and he told me it was going to be a lot more complicated than just a no-brainer. And I know we talked about it last week, almost in the light of it being a no-brainer, as long as the finances can make sense.
Yes.
Well, seemingly the finances didn't make sense. And Memphis did not end up in the Pac-12. They recommitted to the American Athletic Conference alongside all the conference mates that the Pac-12 was trying to poach, which was South Florida, UTSA, and Tulane. They all stayed back with Memphis. Memphis was supposedly the linchpin. If they would have left, all of them would have left. But since they didn't, they all stayed back. And, my question always was, if you're going to get out of the American, you're going to have a buyout or an exit fee, and you're going to have to deal with $2.5 million more per year in travel expenses. And are you going to be able to, if you have those expenses, be able to make it up with the new TV deal that the Pac-12 is ultimately going to strike? Or we'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it came to be where they didn't feel like they could make up that ground even with a new TV deal in the Pac-12. So it keeps them in the American. And I think ultimately, you've been reading the same reports as me, Christian. This came down to a $25 million plus exit fee that the Pac-12 was not willing to give you much on. They weren't willing to help as much as you originally thought.
Well, I think it was $2 million is what.
$2.5 million is what they were willing to put down.
Yeah, so it kind of in the same vein as the Navy game. Like it's very disappointing in a sense. I mean, obviously, you don't want to force an issue like this and end up in a bad position. So I think if all those numbers are correct, I believe they did make the correct decision, because that's just not something financially that the university can take on. And even the extra travel expenses are one thing, but the buyout is massive. And with not having anything in place as far as TV goes for the new look Pac-12, it's just not a risk you can really take. So it's completely understandable. It is a little bit disappointing because you would like for Memphis to be able to get out of the American, and also the best teams in the American come with them to join other really solid group of 5 teams. So it would have been, I believe, a great situation for Memphis and the other teams in the American that were leaving, obviously not the teams that would have been left over. But it's the decision that they had to make. They did not want to hinder themselves financially. So that's a completely understandable decision. So with all of that, where does Memphis go from here? Like, do you see is there any way that there's a light at the tunnel? I know the ACC stuff has been kind of a talking point that you and I have discussed as well. Do you think Memphis ever makes it out, or are they trapped here now?
They're trapped at least for the next 5 years while the grant of rights is going on. And what I can say is control what you can control. Be good on the field. And then in 5 years, if the ACC loses a couple members and they need to backfill, hey, you may be there. But then in the end of the day, you do have to ask yourself about joining that conference, which you would. You would, without question, pay whatever it is to go get into the ACC. But if they do lose members, you have to ask yourself what their TV deal is going to look like, and if that's going to benefit you long term, or is this going to be another Big E situation where you fold in on yourself and you lose more members to bigger and better conferences, and you end up on the outside looking in again? So I think that's the aspirational idea. And it sounds like people behind the scenes are confident that they can get this program and this athletic department to a point where that becomes a reality. But I still think you're sitting at the poker table with 6 or 5 other programs and you're waiting for the best hand. That's all you're doing right now. You're still, it was going to be a gamble no matter what, because the Pac-12 doesn't have a TV deal right now and they need 8 members to even negotiate that. But if you're staying behind, you're still gambling as well that maybe one day we'll get the invite elsewhere. Now, when it comes to like not joining the Pac-12, the only reason it does frustrate me is from a competitive standpoint. That's it.
Yes.
I get the financial reasons. I think they made the right decision, honestly, financially, because the Pac-12 wanted to talk you up as like, oh, we love you, man. We really want you to come down. Come on. But then the money didn't back up the love that they were speaking.
Right.
So like I always think actions speak a whole lot louder than words, and actions spoke a lot louder than words in this situation. But if it was just a competitive decision, like if you were just making this decision off of competition, you would have left yesterday. You would have left last week as soon as you got word from it. But that's not how this works. In the end of the day, Memphis is a working class city. I think they're a little too overextended with their main corporate donor, FedEx. FedEx is probably not willing to go pay $25 million to get you into a Pac-12 that's just a slight upgrade. They're probably waiting more aspirationally for a power conference. So and already they've got $50 million on the renovations and $25 million on the NIL deal. So it just, the money was never going to be able to work out if you're putting up $25 million to get out of the damn American Athletic Conference. And I'll give him and Tim Pernetti some credit. He kept that damn buyout high, that exit fee high for a reason. And the other part of this, look at the Pac-12 now. They're kind of, as much as people wanted to get frustrated that Memphis didn't go and no one else went, UNLV said no to them. San Jose State said no to them. Tulane, Memphis, UTSA, USF all said no to them. And I think the only yes they've gotten is Utah State on top of the original 6. So it's like they're now shopping for the freaking, they're in the scrap aisle. They're looking at the New Mexico States of the world and the UTEPs and shit like that. So, in the end of the day, I know it hurts right now, but I think long term, this was probably the best financial decision for Memphis. As bad as I, hate the fact that you have to stick in the American. The American stinks. I still stand by that.
That's
talk about last week. I still stand by the fact that the American is one that you get out of whenever you can.
Yeah, no, whatever I'm trying to say. Unarguable. There you go. I don't know why I couldn't pull that one out. Unarguable point that you made. But I think you brought this up last week and you were like, well, what if Memphis ultimately makes this decision, go to the Pac-12, and then the ACC stuff does come to fruition? Then how stupid do you feel, or how left out do you feel that you finally could have made that jump to a power conference and ultimately decided to take that slight upgrade and it didn't pay off long term? Now, kind of looking glass half full here, because who knows if that will ever happen. But I think that is probably one of the best avenues to look at this decision as, if they're not going to go to the Pac-12, at least it leaves them open to the potential of still having that Power 4 conference. And if they were able to do something like this college football playoff, if they were able to continue making strides, then it's on the table. Now, is it ad nauseum to keep talking about this and keeping your fingers crossed and keep hoping that one day it's going to happen? Yes, it is. It's frustrating for us.
It's brutal. Sure it's brutal. It's terrible.
It's brutal. It's tough. It's tough when you have been left out multiple times and then you finally see a little pinhole at the end of the tunnel and it doesn't work out. Then it's extremely disappointing. And then you kind of have to jump right back into the wave of, can this happen? Will this ever happen? So I know it's got to be extremely aggravating, extremely frustrating for Memphis fans, especially when you have no control. And I'm not talking about obviously fans don't have any control, but even the university doesn't have any control over if someone else, if another conference decides they want them. And it goes back to what you say and what we've said the entire time when it comes to conference realignment. All you can do is the little bit of things that you can do.
Whatever you can control.
Yeah, you're on the field, you're on the court, you're on the whatever playing surface product that you put out there. Yeah, fundraising, getting money into the program, upgrading facilities, upgrading stadiums, all these things. So it sounds disgusting because we keep saying it, but they're doing all the right things. Like they're doing everything they can. Does it ever happen? Who knows? Who knows?
So on the idea of silver linings, I only have one silver lining staying in the American. The ESPN deal is okay. And that look-in deal that could come in 2026 where people were speculating that money would go down. Apparently in the contract, as long as they have the same membership, which they should have by the time they get to 2026, it can only go up. Now, I don't expect it to go up either. I think it'll be right around the same, 8-9 million per school, however it works out. So I think the best thing though is, the Pac-12 doesn't have a TV media rights deal. Did you want to be the guinea pig for a TNT deal or whatever, or Warner Brothers Discovery deal? Probably not. You still have ESPN, you still have visibility, and that's the only silver lining I really have from this whole thing. Now, can I ask you this? And I'm kind of tired of all the speculation, but think about this. Mountain West now has 7 members because Utah State left to go to the Pac-12. But you know what? Utah State became the 7th member of the Pac-12.
Yeah.
So now you have 2 West Coast conferences with 7 members. You know what would have been the easiest decision to make that may ultimately have to be made?
Merge them.
They should have merged from the beginning, but it feels like Washington State and Oregon State were a little too proud to do that.
Right.
It would have cost no money for anybody. There would have been no exit fees paid. Yep. But it is kind of a mess. The Pac-12, people were giving them a lot of credit for trying to stay alive last week. They've created a freaking problem out on the West Coast.
Yeah, which after how it all unfolded shouldn't be extremely surprising. But once again, everybody was
still expecting. I know it's kind of a joke, but I'm still half expecting for, the Pac-12 powers that be to send Ed Scott and Bill Hardgrave a "you up" text at some point this week.
Yeah,
if they don't get another member to join, or at least a good member, give them the "you up" text and say, "Hey, well, that $2.5 million we were talking about with the exit fees, what do you think about $15 million? Would that change your mind if you only had to pay 10 out of pocket?"
And what do you think if that's the case? You do it
at that point, but 2.5 was. Can we be honest? 2.5 was disrespectful. That was fucking that was a unserious offer. Is what it was.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.